If you're interested in turning wood, this is the video for you. Hey, welcome back to the shop, everybody. So we're turning a bowl today, and this is a special piece. I'm really excited about getting into it. And I thought I'd show you just some basic how to turn a bowl kind of things. This isn't for your intermediate and advanced folks. My background in bowl turning, I actually started in high school and in shop class. Too bad we don't have shop classes anymore. Then just something I wanted to do, and maybe 20 years ago, that was 2006. So 19 years ago, I bought a lathe, and it was a decent lathe, and I promptly broke my back doing dirt bike stuff, and I had to sell it. So I just couldn't do the work holding my hands out like that and having it pull on my back. Well, about 2.5 years ago, I decided, I'm going to revisit turning wood, and here we are. So when I dove into it, my thought process was to get a good lathe to begin with, get some high quality tools, and get the proper sharpening jigs to make this all happen. If you can't sharpen your tools with traditional tools like bowl gouges or scrapers like this, um, you're going to have a tough go. And I resisted the thought of going with carbide bits, tools like this. And that was probably a mistake. I was kind of going old school. For a beginner starting out, I think I'd recommend going with the carbide tips just to make sure that you're actually enjoying it. You're going to put your lathe to work. Uh, the pros and cons. Well, the pros, these are pretty inexpensive. And this little blade right here is disposable. So as it gets dull, you spin the blade, and I'll show you that in a little bit, but you spin it until you've just kind of worn the whole thing out. You toss that little blade away and put a new one on. So you don't need an expensive sharpening jig, the grinders, the fancy wheels. So it's a good way to start. The downside is, well, of course, you're paying for the disposable item all the time. And with these carbide tips, it's slower. When I'm using my bowl gouge, for instance, I can move a lot of material pretty darn quickly. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you in just a second. But again, if I were to do this all over, I would have started with the carbide tips. Now, I had a young man here who was 12 years old. He wanted to learn woodworking, and I taught him a bunch of different things in a day, just doing all the variety pack of what I do. And he's like, well, when can we do the lathe? It's like, 12 years old. He seemed like a mature young man for his age, and he seemed to have good skills around the woodworking tools, and his head was geared towards safety. So I got him on the lathe, and he turned a 4-inch bowl that day. It was respectable. I helped him out a little bit cleaning up some of the mistakes, but he went on to learn, and he's got his own little business making bowls for people. So that's pretty cool. With traditional tools, I can teach somebody in a day how to start, but it's one of those repetition is the mother of all skill things. The fine motor skills involved. You're going to have to make some mistakes before you train the body. That hand-eye coordination, just the most minute little movements. Now think about it for a second. Wood turning is kind of crazy. It's a rather free-form thing. If you're working your table saw, you've got your fence, you've got your blade height, and you're running things through straight, and it kind of keeps you out of trouble. Well, with this, I'm putting a metal object, a sharp metal object, into a piece of wood that's spinning at 500 RPM. What could possibly go wrong? So it is a learning curve, and if you're going to get into turning, you're going to make mistakes. So know that going in, but every bowl that you do, you're going to get better. Now, I don't turn enough bowls consecutively to become an amazing wood turner. There's guys out there I watch in awe. They're just utterly amazing. Um, I might go for 3 months without turning a bowl and decide, like right now, I've been turning a number of bowls. So uh, it is a repetition thing. So keep that in mind. Well, let me demonstrate a couple of tools, and you can see what each one does. It's kind of the pros and cons as well. So let's reposition the camera, and we'll get to that. Well, let's start off with a carbide bit tool, and these are, again, pretty easy to use. It sits flat on the tool rest. You're making gentle passes along the wood. Let me show you how that looks. So you can see what I'm shaving off. I'm not putting real heavy pressure on the wood. Right now, my concern with this bowl is to remove as much material as possible. And I can do a push cut or a pull cut, pulling it back towards me. Now, let me get a pencil here. I'm going to show you something. You see this line right here? So if I'm going to be cutting, and I'm going to pull back towards me in this case, when you get sawdust piling up, you can't necessarily see where you're at, what's happening. But if I look at the top of the bowl, I know exactly where I am. Focus at the top of the bowl and watch my progress. There you go. So carbide tool, very simple to use. Now, with more traditional tools, I've got this scraper, and really a carbide tool is basically a generic scraper. But you could turn an entire bowl with a scraper. I wouldn't recommend it because it's going to take you a long time. But just to give you an idea what that looks like. So very much like that carbide tip tool. All right. Now, I would normally be using this to finish the bowl. I'm going to go through with very light passes. I'm going to get things smoothed out. So there's a real fine shavings, but then I can go in even lighter and make sawdust. And that's what you want to do when you're finishing your bowl, which will reduce the amount of sanding you have to do. Okay, now this is a bowl gouge. Technically, it's a swept back bowl gouge. And the cutting surface is here. It's got a nice burr on it. And you need the fancy jig and the fancy grinder to sharpen these. But let me just show you what this looks like. You'll see I can move a lot of material in a short amount of time. Once you get it started, you're just following the bevel. So you can see how much quicker this is. That's the pro to using gouges. Pretty amazing, huh? So, if you want to make bowls fast, I'm not wearing my dust mask, you want to use a bowl gouge. But again, you've got some different options. There's a lot of different varieties of bowl gouges, and they all serve a purpose, kind of like a Phillips head screwdriver versus a flathead. So off camera, I'm going to go ahead and shape this bowl, and I'll come back and I'll show you a few more tips and tricks and see if this is of interest to you. You know, we ought to talk about safety first. You may have seen I was wearing my glove, and that seems a bit counterintuitive. Some people say you should never wear gloves around machinery. I came up in the trades. I get it. I understand. The reason I wear a glove, and many professional bowl turners do, is when you're moving a lot of material, that wood coming off the bowl blank is hot. It can be really, really hot. So my hands aren't very delicate, but there's times where it's like, wow, I could use that extra layer. So I like not having the fingers on there. And you know, if you're going to catch your hand uh, in between the tool rest and the piece of wood itself, it's going to hurt. You're going to do some damage for sure. So you always have to pay attention to your surroundings and know where your hand is in conjunction with the tool rest and the wood. Okay. Now, secondly, I wear a mask, and commonly I'll wear this base camp mask. I did a video on it, a review. I like it quite a bit actually, and I use it for my normal woodworking chores. I can breathe well. You can hear me reasonably well, and it typically doesn't fog up my glasses or anything like that. Kind of a pro tip: if you're having fogging issues, the mask comes with a little bit of a foam insert. You can just make an adjustment with that foam insert, or you can buy no fog wipes. Just wipe it onto your glasses and it'll last for many days. So this is a good system, and this is only like $40. So a really screaming deal. And then I've got this. It's called an air shield. I like it a lot. It pressurizes the mask. You're drawing in clean air through these HEPA filters up top. This is the on-off button, and you can hear that fan running. It actually moves quite a bit of air. Let me show you what that looks like. It's got this skirt that goes around your face. Turn the button on and it pressurizes your mask. So you're getting good clean air. You're not ever going to get nasty stuff being sucked in. So I prefer to wear this probably nearly all year round. There's times, I live in Idaho, and it gets cold here. So there's days where it's 32 degrees in the shop. I don't like to have that wind blowing on me. So I'll use my base camp mask, and that works out really good. Okay, well, I just wanted to make sure we touched on some personal protection. I didn't want to get blasted. All right. Okay, see you in a little bit. Well, the million-dollar question is, how do you sharpen these tools? It's actually pretty easy after you do it a few times, but I use a one-way sharpening system combined with my low-speed bench grinder. And the bench grinder has the diamond, I guess it's the diamond dust discs on there. So basically, to set this up, I built a spacer. You want to be, there's a fixed amount of space that you want to be to mount your jig. And once I've got that, now this angle here, this is a set it and forget it thing. The very first time you use this, you come up with the proper angle. I don't even remember what that angle was at this point. If you need to know, ask in the comments. But now I want to make sure that I have this thing set up properly in my bench grinder. And here's a tip. I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to use my magic marker. So this is at a specific angle. We want to maintain that angle at all costs. So let's move the camera around and I'll show you exactly how this looks. Well, as you can see right here, this has been marked and set at a specific length, and this actually just goes right down in that groove. And if I have my angle set up properly, all I'm going to be doing is grinding off that little bit of a magic marker mark here. I'm not applying any force whatsoever. And there you have it. Perfect. So I'm going to do the opposite side. And I'll roll it right over the top, and we're good to go. Now I'll show you about the carbide tip tools. With my carbide tip tool, you can see that I'm only using a very small portion of that tip And if I make a mark right there, that's pretty much the surface area that I'm working on. And it, okay, so when you look at your cutting surface on the carbide bit, you see that there's only one small area that's actually making contact with the wood, and that's this area right here. Well, as you're going to be working with this wood, you're going to feel that it's starting to get dull, and it's fairly noticeable. And typically, you want to catch that before it gets real dull because you start doing some tear out and things. But here's the beauty of this system. You simply loosen up that blade. See, it just spun just a little bit. I'm going to hold it in place. Hopefully you can see that with my fingers in the way. Snug it up. And now I have a new location on that blade. It's going to be nice and sharp and work just perfectly. Okay, let's talk tool rest for a minute. So literally, your gouge or your scraper, your carbide tip is sitting right on top of this tool rest, and you're keeping your hands on the safe side. You're able to glide back and forth. If you get into this kind of a situation, you're going to do some serious damage. You definitely don't want to do that. You'll be breaking things. Now, the thing is that this tool rest is so far away from the wood, and with the wood spinning at 500 RPM, it's going to want to grab my tool, and it will gouge the heck out of the wood and do some pretty bad things to it. So your tool rest needs to be about a 1/4 inch away or so. And by doing that, I'm able to better control my tool. Just like that. And I'm holding the gouge down fairly well. I'm not letting it shatter. Just like that. I've got the shape of the bowl about where I want it. So now I'm going to come in with my scraper and do some really, really light passes. And you can see there's some end grain tear out here, a couple of tool marks. I'm going to work on that. I'm going to make a little sawdust, not these big honking chunks. So let me show you what that looks like. Nice, fine sawdust. So I'm going to make a number of passes over that. They're light passes. And it's probably going to take a dozen passes to really take down that tear out. You can see it's already improved right there, right here. So I'll just work it, and then I'll bring you back and I'll show you how I'm going to turn a tenon. I'll explain what that's all about, and then we'll flip this bowl and start gouging out all that inner stuff. This is the bottom of the bowl, and we need to find a way to attach this to the lathe. We have to flip it. Now, on the opposite side, we've got a little chuck, and it's got screws in it. That's going to be the open portion of the bowl. So we'll end up turning out all those screws. It'll just disappear. So what I'm going to do is use a tool called a skew, this guy right here, and I'm going to dig into this wood and remove wood, so I'm left with a tenon, and that tenon is going to fit right inside here, and that's what's going to allow us to be able to flip this bowl. So let me show you how that gets done. I want to find the center of the bowl, which is very easy to do, and I'm going to measure my tenon. I want it to have it to be 2 inches, so I'm going to have 1 inch on each side. That'll give me a 2-inch tenon. And I'll take my skew. Let me put these tools down. Let me take my skew, and I'm going to go in at a slight angle, kind of heading out this way, just gently, because that actually follows that chuck. And I'm going to want about a 1/4 inch tenon. Okay. So now I'm going to remove a little bit more material so I can get in there with my tools. Okay. I think that's going to be good enough. So now what I'm going to do is finish shaping the bottom of the bowl. I'm going to remove this section right here, and I'll bring you back when we flip it and we'll start digging out the meat of this project. Well, normally with woodworking, we woodworkers are adding wood to create a shape. And with wood turning, of course, we're taking wood away. And that definitely makes it very different. Normally I do this with my other hands, but the camera's in the way, so. Okay. Now I'm going to get this good and snug. I don't want to get hit by a bowl that comes off the chuck because it wasn't properly set. Okay. We're good. Time to turn the inside. Well, you saw a lot of the bowl gouge, so let's use the carbide tip. It cuts real nice. Right now, I'm really not concerned about the quality of cut. I'm trying to remove a bunch of material. Okay, I'll bring you back after this is all gouged out, and we'll talk about how we're going to finish this bowl. Well, I'm getting there. I've got maybe an hour of turning left before I can go ahead and start doing my sanding, and I've been using my carbide tip tool more than usual. Normally, I'm running the bowl gouge as I've shown you before, but kind of want to get a feel for these carbide tip tools. I'm definitely no expert with the carbide, but I'm kind of liking how it's working out. Let me spin this up. So I'm not taking terribly aggressive passes. But I'm getting the job done. Well, I'm liking what I'm seeing here. I've got all the tear out pretty much taken care of, so my sanding is going to be very, very minor. And I've been using my scraper, which is ultra sharp. And you see that little bit of powder that's like sawdust, very fine sawdust. And so I'm taking just the most incredibly gentle passes. And I think I'm about there. You can see the dust here. It's just very fine compared to this stuff. So that cleans it up nicely, saves me a ton of time when I'm sanding. And the outside is looking really nice. So I'm going to go ahead and start sanding. So normally I start at either 80 grit or 120 grit, and I'm looking for that end grain. This here, and like you can see, there's just some little pock marks. So I'm going to go after that with 80 grit. And I'm also looking for tool marks. And sometimes you have to kind of look at it at a different angle to see, is it a tool mark or is it just one of the intricate grain patterns that you get in this maple. So again, this is looking pretty darn good. I'm going to show you what I do with my little sander. Okay, let's go back to this. What I'm going to do is just, I've got 80 grit on there, and I'm not going to be spinning the bowl. I'm just moving it back and forth, the grinder back and forth like this. And I've got the grinder at an angle, so I'm going with the grain. I'm going to keep the sander moving so I don't create a big old flat spot. Okay, so I took out those little pock marks without any problem at all, and I'll go ahead and hit the 120 on this. I've got 120 down on pretty much all of this, so I'm just going to keep moving forward. And I see a little tool mark right there I think I'll take out. So the deal is, if you don't get them out now, you're never going to get them out. So your larger grits, 80, 120, you're going to spend more time with that than you will with 220, 400, and 600. And we are going to sand up to 600. Then I'm going to go ahead and use an abrasive paste and a polish. And that'll bring it up to well over 1,000 grit. So that'll do a real nice job. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this up, and I'll see you when it's all sanded out, and we'll apply a finish. I'm sanded out to 600 grit, and now I'm going to apply this Skyler Ewing Woodworking Abrasive Paste. It's made with mineral oil, beeswax, pumice, and tripoli. And what happens is it's got some grit to it, thus the abrasive paste, and it's going to break down as I apply this stuff. Now, I apply it without the lathe spinning, so it doesn't fly over all over the place. And simple application, I'm going to get the lathe up to about 500 RPM, and I'm going to let the grit do its magic. And you may even hear how the grit starts to break down as it spins. That friction. You can do multiple applications if you feel you need to. And when it's all said and done, you just wipe it clean with a cloth. Here we go. This also gives you an idea of what the bowl is going to look like when it's finished. Okay, I'm going to come back in just a moment when I wipe this thing down. Here's a pro tip for you. If you have a soft spot in your wood, this piece of maple, I do have a soft spot. It's not punky, but it's a little bit soft. So what I'm doing is I'm moving the cloth back and forth. And I'm going to do that until that grit breaks down. And that way I'm not leaving a streak. There we go. Let's go ahead and wipe this down. We're just going to wipe until there's nothing else coming off the rag. And always use a white cloth. I made the mistake once of using a black cloth, and it left black marks on my maple. So once we apply the abrasive, then we're going to go to the Carnauba, and that's where this thing really pops. Okay. Let's take a look. Very pretty. Got a nice sheen. I mean, you could literally stop here, but without doing the Carnauba, you're going to miss out on that big luster, and that's what I'm looking for. Well, the bowl looks fantastic already, but we're going to go ahead and apply the Carnauba wood finish and polish. And this is my go-to product. I get some free finishes in the mail, and I can use pretty much whatever I want, but this is my choice. In the show notes, there is a coupon code. You get a discount, so check that out. All right, so now I'm going to spin this up to 1,000 RPM. I'm going to stand to the side of the bowl in case it lets loose. And I want to create as much friction as I can, which is going to set that Carnauba in place. Here we go. All right, I'm at 1,004 RPM. So I'm just going to work that material in, and I'll bring you back for the big reveal. Let's see how we did. The luster is magnificent. The Carnauba wax absolutely did the job. Let's see what the inside looks like. Beautiful. Okay, so with ambrosia maple, you do get little wormholes, and I've got some wax buildup right in there. I am going to just use a dental pick and clean that out, and then it'll be good to go. But we're not done yet. We still have the backside to do, and we're going to go ahead and get this flipped and mounted onto a different chuck, get this all wrapped up. All right, this here is a coal chuck, and it will either increase in size or decrease in size by adjusting the chuck, and you can adjust these rubber bumpers. But ultimately, this bowl is going to fit in here, and it's going to grip down on it. Now, what I have to do is use one of these shop towels to protect the wood finish, because these rubber bumpers will actually ruin the finish. So I want to make sure I'm good to go all the way around. And though you can't see it, there's an adjustment here. And I will crank this down. And I want to make sure it's nice and secure on this chuck. It'd be an absolute bummer to have this thing separate, and I'd have to redo the finish on the outside. Okay. And of course, you don't want to over tighten it and crack the bowl. So the Nova chuck, or the coal chuck, has serrations that are kind of angled outward, so it helps you grip that bowl. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cut off this extra material, and then I'll get after this and tear out or take out this tenon and sand and finish, and we'll be done. So I'm going to run at fairly low speed. The pressure pushing into the bowl is going to help this stay on the chuck. I'm just going to take light passes. I don't want to get aggressive with anything at this point. So I'm going to remove this tenon all the way into here, that final groove, and I'm just going to taper this side down. Now, I could have shaped the bowl and had planned this in advance so that it would be just perfectly flat on the bottom. You can do it any way you want, really, but this is what I preferred to do. Okay, so I've got the shape cut out and the tenon is gone. I'm going to do a little sanding right now, apply the finish, and we're going to call it good. The bottom, here's a funny thing. I've done a number of craft shows or art shows, and people will always pick up a bowl, and the first thing they do, they flip it over to see what's on the back. So you don't want to cut corners there. Clean it up just like you did the rest of the bowl. Do the good work. Okay, I'm going to finish this up off camera, and then the last segment, I'm going to be talking to you about wood lathes, the value, the pros and cons, and that way you can maybe make a decision for yourself whether or not this is worthwhile for you. Well, I couldn't be happier with this project. That bowl, the wood is just incredible. Love it. So, is owning a wood lathe beneficial to you? Well, it depends. If this is a business venture, I think we need to talk about the numbers pretty hard. It gets expensive quickly. Between the lathe that I have there, which is a pretty high-end lathe, and all the tools and all the whistles and bells and everything to sharpen, it's about a $5,000 investment. You can do it a lot less expensively if you want to tinker around. So just depends on what you want to do. I was sharing with my wife Kathy the other day that the wood lathe is probably my single worst investment in tools in the shop. My best being probably the laser engraver. But even though I've sold a lot of bowls, they don't go for a lot of money. So I'm working for less than burger flipper wages when I'm making bowls. And that's not necessarily good. Is it fun? Absolutely. It's meditative. I really enjoy the creative aspect. And again, as a woodworker, it's something very different. You're taking away to make a shape as opposed to gluing or adding on. So it's a totally different mindset. So I don't want to discourage you by any means, but it's definitely not a get-rich scheme. There are a couple of ways to make some money. One of the things that I've done and done well with have been the resin and wood bowls. I'll drop a picture at the very end of this video so you can see what that looks like. They're gorgeous. I've sold every single one of them. They're not a ton of fun to do. They're a little bit harder on the hands. And I think a lot of us at this age, we've got arthritis in the hands and all that sort of fun stuff. But it is doable. So there you go. Okay, long-winded, but I hope it was beneficial. I enjoyed making the video for you guys. If you aren't a subscriber, please hit subscribe, hit the bell, get all my notifications, and we're going to see you next time. I've got plenty more stuff coming up. All right, have a good day.